Welcome to the madness and welcome back to 365 Analytics. We are back. Happy Monday, one of the best weeks of the entire year. Round of 64 and round of 32 March Madness weekend coming up. 16 games Thursday, 16 games Friday. Countless college basketball across your TV screens for hours straight. And welcome back to 365 Analytics. And we are here for one of my favorite moments of the sports calendar. It is time to fill out my 2025 main March Madness bracket. My bracket, what I think is going to happen, and yeah, everything that comes with March Madness. I'm not going to say anymore. I'm going to get right into this. If you guys do enjoy, please like, subscribe. That would all be greatly appreciated. We're going to get right into this. It's been a big, big day. Obviously, we saw the Bengals extended Higgins and Chase last night. So we're happy on the football side, but it's time for college basketball right now. So starting off with the South region, I'm going to go through every single game, go over my final four, and give you guys a full rundown. So let's get right into this. Starting off with the South region, Auburn versus Alabama State or St. Francis. The playing game, this playing game, I believe that playing game is tomorrow. That's when we'll be playing games tomorrow. Either way, I'm taking Auburn. Number one overall seed, best team in college basketball all year long. Janai Broom, the player of the year candidate. Not much to say there. But we go to the 8-9 game, and this is a game I lose sleep over right here. The number 8 seed, Louisville Cardinals, who you could have argued could have been a much, much higher seed in this tournament, versus the number 9 seed, Creighton Blue Jays. This is a tough one. The first game of the tournament, you do not want to start 0-1 in their bracket. Part of me says Louisville. They're the better team. They went 27-7. They did play in a relatively weak ACC, only a few tournament teams in the ACC this year. But then you look at Creighton, Stephen Ashworth, Ryan Kalkbrenner. They've been here before. Creighton is a consistent tournament team year after year. I'm going to go with the Creighton Blue Jays. I like them in this matchup, but that is a tough matchup to predict. I hate how they always start off with 8-9 games, so half the nation's brackets are cooked after the first game. But yeah, I'm gonna have Creighton advancing in that one. Then you get to Michigan versus UC San Diego. UC San Diego, a lot of people like them a lot. It is one of I think it might be their first year. It might be their first year in Division One. They've had a great year. They won their conference tournament. They made a run to March Madness. They are playing the number 5 Wolverines. To be honest with you, I'm a fan of UC San Diego in this bracket, but this is a very, very tough draw for them. I can't see Michigan going down this early. Just the run Michigan's been on, obviously winning the Big Ten tournament, having the size advantage over UC San Diego. Just the better team here. Give me the Wolverines. Give me the Wolverines relatively easily. Texas A&M versus Yale. Texas A&M ended the season pretty cold. Had a pretty bad end, but the Yale Bulldogs, I can't see them beating A&M here. I just think the better team comes out here and just wins the game. So give me A&M. Ole Miss versus San Diego State or UNC. Obviously, everybody knows about the whole entire North Carolina debacle. People are in uproar about them making the tournament, saying the committee loves them. And I think the director of the March Madness Bracket Committee is the athletic director at North Carolina. So everybody's going up in arms about that. But listen, San Diego State University, a team that's been to the Final Four 2 years ago as a 5 seed. University of North Carolina, a team that's in the tournament consistently, was a 1 seed last year. Made it to the Final Four a few years ago and beat Duke to go to the championship game. Lost in the championship game to Kansas. These are two teams that have been here before. Hubert Davis, either way, San Diego State or North Carolina. I have not been a fan of Ole Miss all year. They played in the very, very tough SEC, but this is my first upset of the bracket. Give me San Diego State or UNC to shock Ole Miss and advance to the round of 32. My big thing is seniority. Those two have been deep in the tournament before, and I think that they can win a first round game against Ole Miss. Then you have Iowa State versus Lipscomb. Iowa State, if they get healthy, I think they should be healthy by the time Thursday comes around. Or is that game on Thursday or Friday? I'm not exactly sure, but they should be fully healthy by the time the game comes around. Iowa State, when fully healthy, they're dangerous. They can do some damage in the tournament. Give me Iowa State. Then you have Marquette, New Mexico, obviously Shaka Smart's crew versus Richard Pitino's crew. A very, very tough matchup to predict for me. You look at Marquette, they've been here before, they've been countless tournaments. And then you look at New Mexico, son of the Godfather, Rick Pitino. Richard Pitino's head coach there, 26-7, I believe. Very, very good year for them. You can go to the info and the stats. It's pretty identical. I mean, obviously, New Mexico plays in a much easier schedule. They don't play in a Big East, but it just feels like a 10/7 upset. It does. It feels like a 10/7 upset. Give me New Mexico to beat Shaka Smart's crew and stun Marquette out of the first round. And then Michigan State versus the Bryant Bulldogs. Give me Michigan State. Tom Izzo is not going down that early in the bracket, so yeah, give me Michigan State. Then I'm gonna finish off region by region. Give me Auburn over Creighton. Again, best team in basketball year long. Big fan of what they're doing over there. Bruce Pearl has had that crew absolutely dialed in this year, so give me Auburn. Michigan versus Texas A&M. Give me the Wolverines coming into the tournament hot. Won the Big Ten championship. They're going to keep rolling into the second weekend. SDSU/UNC, whoever comes out of that game. It was a great win. It was a great win, but I cannot see them beating Iowa State. Iowa State is the better team here, better coach team, better program. New Mexico versus Michigan State. Listen, New Mexico, great, great win over Marquette. Just I'm not picking against Tom Izzo. I'm not picking against Tom Izzo with a 2 seed Michigan State this early in the tournament. Give me the Spartans to advance with Jace Richardson and Trey Holloman. Then you go back to the top of the bracket, Auburn and Michigan. This is an intriguing one. This is an intriguing one as you go to the second weekend of the bracket now. Auburn, again, I've said it, best team in basketball, best team in college basketball all year long, with a Player of the Year candidate in Janai Broom versus Michigan, who has a lot of size. You see Vlad Golden, you see Danny Wolf, all the size that Michigan has. I just I can't see him beating. I cannot see them beating the Auburn Tigers. Then you go to Iowa State versus Michigan State. Very, very, very intriguing matchup. A 2 versus 3. If Iowa State's fully healthy and not banged up, this is going to be an intriguing one, tough one to predict. Michigan State was if not worst shooting team in the Big Ten. It could come to hurt them in this tournament. But who's their head coach? It's Tom Izzo. And I like Izzo over anybody. Anybody you can imagine in this tournament. Give me the Spartans to advance to the Elite Eight. And then for a trip to the Final Four in the South region, pretty chalk to start off the bracket. It is the Auburn Tigers versus the Michigan State Spartans. And let me introduce you to the first team to go to the Final Four. Coming out of the South region to make it to the Final Four, I have the Auburn Tigers, led by Bruce Pearl and Janai Broom, the #1 overall seed in college basketball, the best team all year long, and an absolute wagon. This team stands out to me as one that could really do it to win it all. Not gonna lie. A lot of people are skeptical about them because they've had some losses in the past few weeks. They've lost to Alabama and they lost to Tennessee in the SEC tournament. But I am not getting fooled. I think Janai Broom and the boys could put on a show, and I think this is your first Final Four team. So yeah, I'm going to have the Auburn Tigers advance to the Final Four and take down Tom Izzo's crew in Michigan State. A lot of people are down on the Tigers now. They've lost a few in the past few weeks. They've lost to Alabama. They lost in the SEC tournament, and they've lost a few games in a row. Alabama and Tennessee, not great losses, but Bruce Pearl entering the tournament, he knows how good his crew is, and I think they're going to get over the hump and make a trip to the Final Four. Then we go down to the West region. We start off with Florida versus Norfolk State. Norfolk State, it was a great run. It was fun to see you come out, but give me the Gators, Mark Clayton Jr. and the crew. Then you go to the 8-9 game here, UConn versus Oklahoma. It's been a down year for UConn. Obviously, everybody knows it. Back-to-back champions. Liam McNeely is a good player, though, and the UConn Huskies, led by Dan Hurley, do not get it twisted. Dan Hurley is still a great head coach, despite the down year that UConn's had. They lost a lot to the NBA, but I cannot see Dan Hurley going down. I can't see Dan Hurley going down in the first round, especially to an Oklahoma team like this. A lot of people like Oklahoma in this game. I don't. I do not see Dan Hurley going down this early. Then you go to Memphis versus Colorado State. Colorado State comes in this matchup hot. I believe they've won 10 straight or 11 straight or something like that. And they come in good. Then you play the Memphis Tigers. Their guard duo is very, very, very banged up. Who knows if they're healthy coming into this game, but PJ Haggerty is an absolute beast. I think he makes a name for himself this March. Give me the Memphis Tigers. Then you go to Maryland versus Grand Canyon. Listen, if it was any other four seed, I'd like Grand Canyon's odds. Maryland is a tough, tough draw. I believe Grand Canyon went 26-7 or something like that. I believe it. Yeah, it went 26-7. Maryland went 25-8. Lost to Michigan in the Big Ten semifinal. As a 13 seed, I love Grand Canyon. I do. And if they played a lot of other four seeds, I would consider picking them, but not against the Terps. The Terps, they're good. They're good. They're good. They got a good program this year. I'm gonna have them move on to play Memphis, and that's gonna be a good game. Missouri versus Drake. This is another tough one to pick. Another very, very tough one. You have Mizzou played in the toughest SEC, the toughest conference in all of college basketball that ever. The toughest conference ever in college basketball. But then you have the Drake Bulldogs, 30-3 on the year. It's tough because I want to go Drake. I do. I want to go Drake. But I like what Mizzou did this year. Mizzou had some big wins this year. They beat Alabama, beat Georgia, beat Oklahoma, lost to Arkansas in a close game. South Carolina obviously beat the Vandy loss, a little alarming. They beat Mississippi State. I mean, I like what Missouri did this year. I do. And they played in the tough, tough conference. Give me Mizzou, but that is a tough game to pick. Texas Tech versus UNCW. Give me the Red Raiders. I was kind of overthinking this one when I actually like fully did out the bracket. I already have the bracket written down over here. I'm kind of just presenting it for a YouTube video now, but I was considering UNCW for about a few minutes there, but I'm like, no way the Red Raiders go out this early. They have some quality wins. I'm pretty sure they beat Houston earlier in the year. That might have been the last loss Houston took. So, yeah, they're a good program. There's no way they lose that early. And then this one. This it might be the game I'm most excited for in the entire tournament. Or the entire first round, I should say. You have the Kansas Jayhawks led by Bill Self versus the Arkansas Razorbacks led by John Calipari. Two legendary head coaches that are going to be college basketball Hall of Famers. You have a Kansas team who comes in with a down year. Hunter Dickinson feels like he's played at Kansas for ages. Then you have Arkansas, who played, again, one of the toughest or the toughest conference league that college basketball has ever seen. And a down year for the Jayhawks. Give me John Calipari and the Arkansas Razorbacks to advance to the round of 32. And then Omaha, again, it was fun. I'm glad you came out, but Patino's not losing that early. If Patino gets upset, that'd be the most shocking upset. Like, Patino's not going out that early. So, yeah, give me St. John's, the Mecca from New York City. Then you go to Florida, UConn. Dan Hurley's been here before. He's been in these big games, but Florida is just too much to handle this year. Mark Clayton, the shooting that Florida has, it's going to be too much for UConn. And their three-peat hopes are officially dead with a loss to the Gators. And by the way, these four games, this West region round of 32 is very intriguing. These are some good four games if it ends out like this. Then you go to Memphis, Maryland. Memphis, PJ Haggerty. I said it before. I think he's going to make a name for himself this March. Hasn't been talked about enough in the entire college basketball season, I think. But then you play the Terps. The Terps, good team this year. They can score, they can shoot, they can light it up from downtown. This is a good matchup. 5 versus 4. If you saw a video I made a few weeks ago, I presented 5 teams that I really like going into March. And I like what Penny Hardaway's building. Give me the Memphis Tigers to advance to the second weekend of March Madness and set up a big, big matchup with the Florida Gators. You have Mizzou versus Texas Tech. Give me the Red Raiders to knock off Mizzou. Then you have Arkansas versus St. John's. Listen, Arkansas, if you weren't playing Patino, I would have liked your odds to go to the second weekend. I like Calipari a lot. Obviously, everybody knows that he choked a lot of Kentucky, but that's more of a Kentucky problem than a Calipari problem. I like these are 2 teams again in that same video. I said I liked going into this tournament. St. John's, RJ Lewis, they're a powerhouse this year. Give me the Johnnies. Give me the Red Storm to advance to the second weekend. Back to the top of the region, Florida and Memphis. Here we go. And this is going to be my first big, big upset, I think, of the entire bracket. Give me Memphis to upset the Gators. I think it's a Memphis run. It's a Memphis run year. We see a 5 seed like this. PJ Haggerty is a beast. Give me Memphis to stun Florida. A lot of people love the Gators this tournament too. Everybody's on the Gators. They just beat Tennessee in the SEC championship game. First SEC championship for Florida since I believe 2014. I believe. A lot of people are fans of them this year. 1 seed, they liked what they built, but I think Memphis gets it done. And then I think St. John's a little too much for Texas Tech. I think they're the better team, and this sets up a good Elite Eight matchup. Memphis versus St. John's. You have one team, the underdog, the 5 seed, versus the Johnnies from the Big East. You look at the AAC week conference, they went 29-5 and it's 16-2 in the American Athletic Conference. Look at St. John's in the Big East, absolutely revived by Rick Pitino. Won the conference championship, had some slow starts, but picked it up in the tournament. Just absolutely killing teams. Last loss being Villanova in the Big East. I get it. You look at Memphis' schedule. You look at it. You see UAB. UAB kept it close for the entire game. Tulane, 78-77, 83-80, 84-68, 75-70. Like they look vulnerable. Coming out of the West region, I have the St. John's Red Storm led by the Godfather, the Italian Stallion, one of the greatest college basketball coaches to ever put on a suit and stand on the hardwood. It is Rick Pitino and the Johnnies, led by star player RJ Lewis Jr., and they are your Big East champions and the winner of the West region. I like this team a lot. I am buying into the hype. I think they are a absolute unit, and I think they are making a trip to the Final Four in San Antonio. Give me the Johnnies. Give me the Johnnies. Give me the Red Storm to advance to the Final Four. Okay, that sets up Auburn and St. John's in a Final Four matchup in San Antonio. Then we go to the East region. Give me the Blue Devils. They won the ACC tournament without Cooper Flag, beat UNC. I mean, they're not losing this game. Mississippi State Baylor, another pretty tough one. Baylor's 19-14 on the year. Mississippi State played in the toughest conference in college basketball. Give me Mississippi State Bulldogs. Oregon Liberty 5-12. Interesting matchup to me. I like what Liberty's done this year. I do. I like what Liberty's done. But Oregon's a good program this year too. Click on the stats here. Shooting, Liberty has the edge. Net ranking, obviously Oregon has the edge. They play in the Big Ten. Efficiency goes to Oregon. Winning percentage it goes to Liberty. 28-6 on the season, 13-5 in the conference. Give me the 12 seed to upset the 5 seed here in Liberty to move on. Arizona and Akron. I'm not betting against Caleb Love in the round of 64 game. He's a spot up shooter. He can light it up in the scoring department. Akron. Akron's a good 13 seed, but a tough draw. A tough draw as a 4 seed. BYU and VCU, a game that a lot of people are having a tough time picking here. A lot of people are on VCU here. I'm gonna go with the favorite. I like what BYU's done this year. They have wins against Arizona, even though that game where they beat Arizona, they shouldn't have beat them. It was a terrible call at the end, and it was like ref ball, and it was pretty crazy. But BYU, they have some good wins this year. John Tonje and the Badgers are going to beat Montana. Tonje, a little inconsistent, obviously. We saw in the Big Ten championship game, didn't show up, shot like, I think 1 for 10 or something like that. Maybe had 8 points the entire game because he shot 6 free throws, maybe. Was not a good outing for him, but the day before he had 32 versus Michigan State and beat him, knocked him off in the Big Ten tournament. So I know what John Tonje can do, and if he shows up this March, Wisconsin's not going to be an easy out. St. Mary's and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt snuck in here on the back door. The committee really liked them. They made it in without even being a last four in. But give me the Gales. Give me St. Mary's. I talked about them in a video a few weeks ago. I like what they're building. I like them as an underdog in March. I thought they were going to be a 4 or 5 seed. They end up being a 7 seed. Interesting. Alabama versus Robert Morris. Give me Mark Sears and the boys. One thing though is Grant Nelson's health is a question mark, but I expect him to be healthy for the tournament, and I expect Alabama to move on there. Duke and Mississippi State. Give me the Blue Devils. They're just great. They're great. I can't see them losing that early. They go to the second weekend. Liberty and Arizona. I mean Liberty. It was a great win against Oregon, but you're facing Caleb Love now. You're facing an Arizona team that went to the Elite Eight last year. They've been here before, and I'm picking Caleb Love to go to the second weekend. Caleb Love is a beast, dude. BYU is Wisconsin. Again, same thing. If Tonje shows up, Wisconsin is not an easy out, and I think he does. So give me Wisconsin. And then another another pretty big upset we got cooking here. I am gonna take the St. Mary's Gales against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Listen, I get it. Alabama went 25-8. They played in the toughest conference in the history of college basketball. St. Mary's plays in the West Coast Conference against Gonzaga being their biggest out in that conference. I believe their one loss was Gonzaga. They lost to Gonzaga in the conference championship game. But hear me out. Alabama, we've seen it. Number one, Grant Nelson's health is a concern. Mollywhopped by Florida. They beat Auburn on a game-winning shot. Mark Sears put it up, but they were in danger of losing that game. Lost to Florida before that. Lost to the Vols. Beat Mississippi State. Beat Kentucky. They lost to Mizzou on a Tuesday night. I remember watching that game. Lost to Auburn a few days before that. Like, they're vulnerable. They've lost teams like Mizzou. They lost to Florida twice. Got mollywhopped by them in the SEC tournament. Give me St. Mary's to move on, and I like what they're building this year. Duke versus Arizona. If Cooper Flag shows up and Proctor shows up, John Shire's team is not an easy route. I just like Duke shooting, Duke scoring. It's just too much. It's too much for the Wildcats to keep up with only Caleb Love being a one-man show. Give me the Blue Devils. And this one's very intriguing to me. We have John Tonje and the Badgers going up against St. Mary's team with I don't know how to say the star player's name. I still don't know how to say his name. Like it, it's I don't know how to say it, but St. Mary's again. I like what they're building. I get it. They play in the West Coast Conference and Gonzaga is their biggest out. Give me the Gales. Give me the Gales to make an Elite Eight run. And then you go to the Elite Eight matchup for a trip to the Final Four out of the East region. The Duke Blue Devils, led by John Shire, versus the St. Mary's Gales. And let me present to you my Final Four team. Coming out of the East region, a shocker to a lot of you probably. I have the St. Mary's Gales coming out of the West Coast Conference of California, shocking the Duke Blue Devils. I think this is a team that could do some damage as a number 7 seed. I said in a video months ago, or probably about a month ago now, that I think they can do damage in March, and I think this is a team to watch out for going to the Final Four. So yeah, I have St. Mary's moving on. I have them upsetting Cooper Flag and the Duke Blue Devils. Listen, the past few years, last year, obviously, we saw an 11 seed NC State Wolfpack make the Final Four. We've seen San Diego State make a Final Four in the years past. We've seen North Carolina make Final Fours. We've seen 9 seed Florida Atlantic make a Final Four a few years ago. We've seen every single year in the past few years, there's that one lower seed that makes a trip to the Final Four. And I think the St. Mary's Gales are that team this year. They're your last year's NC State. They're your 2023 Florida Atlantic and San Diego State. They're that team this year. And I'm picking the Gales to make a Final Four trip. Then you go to the final region, the Midwest region, to finish off the bracket. Houston. Milo Suzan, Kelvin Sampson, LJ Cryer, Emmanuel Sharp. I mean, they have talent across the board. They were my championship pick last year. They ended up getting outed by Texas A&M. I'm not picking them to lose in the first round. You have Gonzaga versus Georgia. A lot of people are on the Bulldogs. Actually, I can't say the Bulldogs. They're both the Bulldogs, but a lot of people are on Georgia to come out of this game alive. Gonzaga, they've made the Sweet 16 the past few years now. They've made it to the second weekend the past few years. They have experience here. Obviously, no more Drew Timmy, so that's a little bit interesting. It's pretty new blood in Gonzaga, but I don't see them losing to Georgia. They've been here before. I expect them to get it done and face Houston. Clemson versus McNeese. A lot of people want McNeese to win this game because, like, McNeese is a great story. You see their student advisor, I think it's their student advisor, going viral for carrying the boombox. But we saw Clemson be an Elite Eight team last year. They're not an easy out. I cannot see them losing to McNeese this early. And here we go. This is my low seed that I'm gonna have winning my biggest upset of the round of 64. Give me High Point University to beat the Purdue Boilermakers. Purdue. They just scream chokers to me. Obviously, we saw them go to the national championship game last year, got blown out by UConn. No more Zach Edey. Braden Smith's great, one of the best players in the entire Big Ten. But Purdue has had some bad losses this year. I mean, you see them. You just look at the schedules. Purdue in the Big Ten, they got outed by Michigan bad. Beat USC by 5 points. Lost to Illinois, killed Rutgers, beat UCLA by 10, lost to Indiana, who's not even in the tournament. People argue they could have been, but they're not in the tournament. Lost to Michigan State, lost to Wisconsin, lost to Michigan. Fourth straight there. Braden Smith, Kaufman Wren, like those are good. Lawyer, like they have some good players. But I think High Point is a team. I think they had 29 wins on the year. Is that how many they had? 29 wins? Why does it not show it? It's bugged. Well, it's bugged right now. Oh, they're 29-5. Yeah, 29 wins. This can be a team that can do some damage to Purdue, and I think they get the upset. You go to Illinois versus Texas or Xavier. Honestly, not a big fan of what Texas or Xavier can do in this tournament. Xavier and Texas both backdoor their way in. A lot of people argued West Virginia or Indiana, Ohio State. Some of those teams could have been over them. I'm going to take Illinois, more experienced team. They're in the tournament more. Give me Illinois. Kentucky versus Troy. I know we know Kentucky has chokers, but I can't pick against them. I can't pick against them this early. Give me the Wildcats. I don't like Troy to beat them there, but yeah. UCLA versus Utah State. Utah State backdoored their way in. Same thing. Believe how many wins they had a good record. They have 26-7 in the Mountain West. UCLA 22-10 in the Big Ten. We see UCLA in the tournament almost every single season. They were my championship pick a few years ago in 2022, I believe. I'm going to pick them to beat Utah State as the favorite here as a 7 seed. And the Tennessee Volunteers are beating the Terriers, no questions asked. They have a good program. Houston versus Gonzaga. I don't like the draw for Gonzaga here. Gonzaga just doesn't have enough to me. They don't have enough in my eyes to beat the Cougars. And I'm going to take the Houston Cougars. Clemson versus High Point. High Point, great, great win in the first round, but Clemson, Elite Eight team last year. I think they're a Sweet 16 team this year, and they're going to beat High Point. Illinois versus Kentucky. I know we know Kentucky has chokers. Mark Pope, first year head coach. They don't have a single player that returned from last year. I know Kentucky usually chokes, but I know I shouldn't fall into the trap. To be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of either of these teams. Illinois, we've seen them have some bad losses. Got mollywopped by Maryland in the Big Ten tournament game. Like we've seen them have bad losses. Killed by Michigan State and Wisconsin. Like didn't even compete. Kentucky played the toughest SEC ever. I'm gonna take Mark Pope and the boys to go to the Sweet 16, but that's probably a dangerous pick to be honest with you. UCLA and Tennessee. Tennessee's the full package, if I'm being real with you. Tennessee's Zakai Ziegler, one of the best defending guards in the nation, if not the best. They can shoot. They have shooting. They can score. They can play defense. The Vols are the full package. Give me Tennessee. Houston versus Clemson. Clemson was an Elite Eight team last year. I think their run ends here this year. The Cougars are a wagon. Give me Houston. And Kentucky versus Tennessee, an SEC matchup in the Sweet 16. Give me the Vols. I like what they're building this year. And then you see a 1 versus a 2 in the Midwest region final, Elite Eight. This, not gonna lie, this was a very tough matchup for me to predict. But let me introduce you to my Final Four team from the Midwest. Coming out of the Midwest region to finish off the Final Four, I'm going to take Zakai Ziegler and the Tennessee Volunteers. Runners up of your SEC tournament, winners of an SEC semifinal game against the Auburn Tigers. And I think this is a team that can beat Houston and do some damage March. They can shoot, they can score, they can play defense. They are a full package as a basketball team. And I think they make a Final Four run. Yeah, so I'm gonna have Tennessee making a trip to the Final Four out of the Midwest region. Not gonna lie, this was a really tough one. Houston, Kelvin Sampson just feels like a Houston year, but at the same time, it feels like a Tennessee year. Zakai Ziegler, probably his last year at Tennessee. I mean, he has to make a run this year. Has to make a run this year. And I think the Vols have the full packages here. We saw them lose to Florida in the SEC championship game. But I think they can rebound from that. I think they can go on a run in March, and I think they can do some damage. Then you go to the Final Four in San Antonio, with these two games being on April 5th and the championship game being on a Monday night on April 7th. Let's start off with the left side of the bracket. The Auburn Tigers come in as the #1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament this year, led by Player of the Year candidate Janai Broom, an absolute wagon. Head coach Bruce Pearl created the best team in college basketball all year long. Their opponent, the St. John's Red Storm, led by 72-year-old Rick Pitino, one of the legendary coaches in the history of college basketball. SEC versus Big East, Broom versus Lewis Jr. I'm picking a team that played in the toughest conference, toughest league that college basketball has ever seen. Give me the Auburn Tigers to advance to the national championship game. Then you look on the right side of the bracket. The St. Mary's Gales as a #7 seed, an improbable run. beating back to back to back, beating the Alabama Crimson Tide, beating the Wisconsin Badgers, and beating the Duke Blue Devils. Their opponent is Tennessee, led by all defensive guard Zakai Ziegler. They can make it rain from long range. Another SEC team, and I'm going to pick them to advance to the national championship game. Great run for St. Mary's, but it ends there. Then in the Alamo Dome, San Antonio, the national championship game, the Auburn Tigers versus the Tennessee Volunteers. In my opinion, the two best SEC teams all year long. You could argue Florida, but in my opinion, the two best teams in the entire SEC. They lost to Tennessee in the SEC tournament. The Auburn Tigers did. But in the regular season, there's been there's SEC has just been it's been a bloodbath this year. To win the national championship, I am picking the Auburn Tigers. The Auburn Tigers to win the national championship in Janai Broom and Bruce Pearl in a year where nobody expected it. They expected Auburn to be a bubble ranked team, maybe like 25th through 30th through 30s, 40s. No one would have thought they would have been a one seed, but Janai Broom burst onto the scene, and I'll say 81 to 74. And I'm going to take the Auburn Tigers to win it all and take home March Madness / the NCAA tournament for the 2025 college basketball season. So, yeah, that's going to do it. If you guys did enjoy, please like, subscribe. That would all be greatly appreciated. I had a few videos do well the past few weeks. I've gained some subscribers, so I'm really grateful about that and happy about that. But it's March, baby. Let's dance. Let's have some fun. Let's have some historical upsets. Let's have underdogs go far and absolute demons, and that's the beauty of March. You see powerhouses and you see underdogs do things you've never seen before. Let's dance. Let's have some fun. I'll see y'all next time.